Hello, this will be a short tutorial regarding Navcuts and Stair helpers. Navcuts and Stair helpers are special types of collision bodies added to workshop meshes which make said items far more functional and visible for NPCs. We will start with Navcuts. Navcuts are basic blocks, rectangular in shape, that basically do what the name says. They will cut the underlying navcut, allowing a different nav mesh to take precedence. For exemplification, I've created a scene here with a basic doorway schematic as well as two navcuts. How this goes: you'll have your mesh, which will have a material, whichever material you prefer you need, and then you will create the two navcuts. They are simple rectangular blocks. Each rectangle will go on each side of the door as such. First, let's reset this to 0. There you go. And the other one goes here. Each of these rectangles needs to have its own node within the NIF file. Therefore, you'll have to create another dummy or simple box like this, which will be the parent of said navcut. We'll name each of them Navcut 0, 1, and the other one, let's change these a bit to make it more visible, Navcut 0, 2. We'll also rename everything here into C Navcut 0, 1 and C Navcut 0, 2. Now we'll create a hierarchy. In order to do such, we can either use select and link, or a far easier method is to use the Scene Explorer. In the Scene Explorer, you grab each item by this little white ball here and just drag and draw. Simple and very fast. So let's do that. Navcut here, Navcut here. Now each of these, you can select multiple items using Control. Each of these has to depend on the main or on the root mesh, which is the doorway, obviously. Before you apply any collision or any sort of collision body or anything else, you will have to reset Xform for each of these. So you go into Utilities, and Xform should be one of these options by default. Select each collision, navcut collision, reset Xform, reset selected. Now go back into modifier panel and collapse all. Alternatively, simply converting to editable poly will do the same, will have the same result. The next step is to simply apply the collision to each navcut. Have a content, physics, proxy. Give it a mass of at least 60 and then select the navcut. Given that each and every navcut always will be a rectangle, you can simply go into shape type and select box, which is less demanding on your PC or on your game. Then we go back into tools, into utilities, and if you do not have it set up like me, you'll most likely find it in more. It's going to be called a collision group, and you'll find it somewhere around here. Go back to collision group. Now with your navcut collision selected, you go into object type, find navmesh cut, apply to selected. There's no need for a material. I think actually you should not give a material, because that will break this collision and actually make it a physical interactive collision. And with that, you're pretty much done. You'll do the same for the other collision. Select both, physics, proxy, box, and navmesh cut. Apply, and you're pretty much ready to go. Let's name this test doorway. Copy that. Go into your main max menu, export selected, paste the name, change to Gamebryo, and obviously you have to export into a folder called meshes, whatever that is, otherwise your Elric will not be able to convert it. and save. Okay. Now we'll go here. Before you convert your mesh, you will be able to actually visualize the collisions within Navscope. Simply go here and show collision. Now you can see the collisions. The two nav mesh cuts are on each side, as there should be, and they will effectively cut any underlying nav mesh, only leaving the one in the middle free to pass. NPCs will interact with the doorway, only seeing that this path is passable, and the rest is simply invisible. So they will just go through the actual doorway hole as they're supposed to. Let's convert that file to see how the structure looks like. There you go. Once you've converted the file, there's no possibility of seeing the collision anymore. I think it's being worked on. The two collision bodies will be separated, each of them in their own node, named accordingly. And that's pretty much all there is. All there's left now is to implement the doorway in your game and test it out. Make sure that it's fully functional. The more important step in Navcuts is determining what type of Navcut to use. For this doorway, you would want the underlying nav meshing to tell the NPCs to go through the gap. So you want to cut each side and remove any nav meshing around here and here, so it only goes this way. But you might have a different type of doorway. You might have a doorway that is like this. It has a lower part which will get a nav mesh. You'll want to nav mesh this part. In this case, instead of having two nav cuts, you want only one nav cut. This nav cut will remove anything underneath it, telling NPCs that they should only use the nav mesh that you placed here. You might have prefabs of various shapes, square or round or not. You'll want, depending on each prefab, you'll want different types of nav cuts. Let's find an example of a shacks. We'll take one of the shack prefabs and see how that behaves. In the case of prefabs, most times you will want to either cut at the doorways or just entirely place a block on each rectangular shape or rectangular section of your prefab. For example, this one, you could go two ways. You could either add a nav cut on each side of the door and then nav mesh the interior and extend the nav mesh here at the exit a bit so it connects with the underlying nav mesh, or you could do the simpler thing and just place an entire nav cut on top of the whole thing. You'll want the nav cut to sink a bit underneath. It doesn't have to go very tall. 120 units is far more than enough, and that will pretty much be done with this one. And in general, you'll want to select the shape and the size of your nav cut depending on what you want to remove from the underlying nav mesh. Okay, that'll be nav cuts. Stair helpers are another special type of collision. Let's import something from what I've been working on. Staircase. Let's import everything here. Okay, So this is a wide staircase that I created for one of my sets. As you can see, it goes from 0 to 256. It's pretty wide, and you can of course just make a normal collision out of this and only add a nav mesh and hope that NPCs will see it, but generally they seem to have issues going on stairs. I do not know exactly what the reason is, but they do seem to have issues. So in order to help them, Bethesda devised a thing called a stair helper. Let's select this. A stair helper is preferably approximately the same size as your stairs, and it should extend exactly as much as your nav meshing will extend into the floor. Personally, I prefer to extend the nav mesh a bit under the level of the floor where the staircase snaps, just to make sure that they connect, and the NPCs will definitely see the staircase and go up on the next level. It's up to you how you nav mesh your staircase, and again, helpers will be rectangles, but they will be rotated and moved, so they are matching the staircase incline and everything else. Now let's just remove the collision. How you create a Navcut, a stair helper? Well, you'll create your shapes. You create your collision shape. You'll create a helper, which can be just a dummy or just another box. You link the box to your main mesh like this. You link the helper to you link the collision helper to the dummy. You go into your utilities, you reset X form, convert to poly to collapse all modifiers, select the helper and the collision, then go into physics, proxy. Now you're going to leave it as a convex hull, because if you give it a box collision, it will just create a box like this, and you don't really want that. Now go back to utilities, find your collision group utility, open it, and then in the collision, the object type, you add stair helper. Stair helper. There you go. Apply to selected, no material given. Once all is done, you can simply export this. Export selected, test stair. Let's go into our folder and check the collisions before converting to make sure that everything is correct. As you can see, you have both collisions now present, both the helper, which extends up to here, and the normal collision, which I usually just go for a rectangle. It's simpler and less computations on the computer. The helper collision will be separated as a node. It should always be separated as a node, otherwise it gets integrated into the main collision and it doesn't do anything anymore, at least as far as I know. Next, you'll just want to convert it. Check it again to make sure that everything is alright. As you can see, collision is here. One thing that will happen is that the flags, the BSX flags, will be changed to 74 for whatever reason. They should be 10. Usually, most meshes will be 10. Other than that, everything is working perfectly fine. You're ready to go into game and verify your staircase. I hope this helped, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'll be available for any issues you might have at any moment.